Welcome to Coronavirus The Rundown. I'm Usher Qureshi. Each day we showcase how American communities are taking on the coronavirus. We also break down the headlines. Today we're getting a bigger picture at unemployment during this pandemic. New numbers today show more than 20 million jobs were cut in April. These were jobs in factories, schools, and construction sites. Economists say we're likely to lose more jobs in May and finally start beginning the recovery in June. For the first time in history, the New York City subway system is shut down. Workers deep cleaned and disinfected trains Tuesday night.
But extraordinary times call for extraordinary measures.
And new hope for a coronavirus vaccine. A biotech firm announcing it could come as early as this summer.
I think antibodies will be finished first and will be the bridge toward longer immunity, which will be conferred by vaccines.
Scientists are now zoning in on finding the most powerful antibodies to fend off the virus. Government orders to wear masks and maintain social distancing guidelines are leading to confrontations around the country. In Flint, Michigan, 3 family members are charged with shooting and killing a security guard at a Family Dollar store. Officials say it started when the guard told a customer to wear a state-mandated face mask. And video out of Austin, Texas, shows a ranger telling a crowd to disperse. A man from the group is accused of then pushing the ranger into the lake. In Stillwater, Oklahoma, within hours of requiring face coverings, retail workers got threats for trying to enforce the rule. The city manager says, quote, "It is unfortunate and distressing that those who refuse and threaten violence are so self-absorbed as to not follow what is a simple show of respect and kindness to others." Well, one psychologist says these incidents likely have more to do with concerns over maintaining control as opposed to selfishness.
For some people, when they feel like somebody else is trying to control their decisions, they're going to act out against it.
Dr. Vail Wright says this is likely a phenomenon called control aversion. Heightened feelings of frustration or anger can also drive behavior. Attitudes towards the government may come into play as well.
So I think if you've got a situation where people are distrustful of, say, their local government or the federal government, or they're hearing all these inconsistent messages about what recommendations to follow, I think those are things that are going to influence somebody.
Dr. Wright says culturally, Americans tend to place a lot of value in control over their lives and freedom. So being told what to do can lead to more frustration. High schools reopened today in Wuhan, China, the city where coronavirus is believed to have originated. Students had to walk through thermal scanners. Anyone with a high temperature was not allowed in. Desks are spaced 3 feet apart, and start times were staggered in order to avoid too many people entering buildings at the same time. China has not reported a single death from the virus in 3 weeks. Southwest Airlines wants more people to start flying again, so it's asking the TSA to add temperature scans to security checkpoints. Southwest CEO says TSA lines are the logical place for these types of screenings at airports. Air Canada is the first airline in North America to require temperature screenings for passengers, and Payne Field, an airport in the Seattle area, has announced it will start screening passengers with a thermal camera. As colleges across the country stop giving tours, one high school counselor in Atlanta has created more than 100 interactive virtual tours for prospective students. Alexa Liaco takes us on a 360 tour with the counselor behind the project.
We're at the University of Connecticut. We're at the University of Wisconsin-Madison.
Penn State Admissions Office.
High school counselor David Wu has traveled the country, visiting more than 100 colleges.
We're at UC Irvine.
Summer of 2017, took my wife on a road trip. We went from Atlanta to New York to Columbus, Ohio, and back down.
At each stop, the tech-savvy teacher uses drones, a hoverboard, and a 360-degree camera to capture the atmosphere of the school.
Kids and their families, they can see, is it a safe environment? Do I want to live on campus, off campus? What does it actually look like, right? I'm going to spend 4 years there.
Wu says when the coronavirus hit, his students and their families were forced to cancel their college visits and turn to him for help.
It's quite frustrating. I've only been to Georgia Tech and some local college around me, but not actually been to my college of interest.
So Wu sped up the deadline on his passion project, and it's become the #1 place his students can visit.
Never imagined the world would be the way it is, and it might go on for a little bit longer. So I'm thinking about fall, when these new seniors are applying and they can't visit and they're really just applying blind. hopefully this can help a ton of people.
The project took months to complete, but there are now more than 100 360-degree college video tours for students to experience. And just like a real tour, students can look at every angle of the campus, including housing and activities around it. And if you look closely, you'll find statistics like apartment housing costs and undergraduate starting salaries, and even some fun campus trivia.
You decide where to look, up, down, left, right.
It feels like you are actually having a tour, but it kind of feels good to know that's where I'm going to spend my next 4 years in the future.
And in this time where the future remains unseen, WU is sharing these free tools to help students look at their future with a little more clarity.
Knowledge is the great equalizer, and the more people who have it, the better off we all are.
I'm Alexa Liaco reporting.
An elementary school gym teacher wants to make sure kids are still getting some exercise right now. He's posting tutorials online, offering up ideas for fun activities that don't require much.
All the activities I create, use common household objects. Things they have at home, not things they have to go out and buy or not specialized equipment. Tupperware lids. We had one activity where we played air hockey, DIY air hockey, and they used Tupperware lids to slide the puck back and forth in their house.
Coach Hamilton says surviving all this is about teamwork and that he hopes his activities can have a positive impact. Well, telehealth is getting more popular, and that could mean more robot healthcare providers. We look at what's next for virtual doctor visits. And bats getting a bad rep since coronavirus started. We're digging into the good things bats do for our world. Next.
And Keller. Right now.
Scientists believe coronavirus may have originated in bats and then passed on to other animals before humans became infected. That's led bats to getting somewhat of a bad rap. The Fish and Wildlife Service has gone as far as suspending all studies involving bats in order to protect researchers from coronavirus. Again, it's still not known for sure if COVID-19 came from bats, but experts at Bat World Sanctuary say the creatures are often finding themselves in human spaces because their habitats are either destroyed or taken over.
We keep opening Pandora's box expecting to find cookies, and that's not what's in there. Nature protects itself, and if we're not respectful of nature, then we're going to pay a price for that.
Experts say bats should be left alone, especially because they do a lot for the ecosystem. Our experts say 70% of bats eat only bugs. That means they're acting as a natural pest control.
They eat insects like mosquitoes that do carry diseases that harm people like Zika and malaria, West Nile, yellow fever. Those are all mosquito-borne diseases.
They also help trees from getting ruined by pests, which in turn helps produce oxygen and other byproducts. Bat guano also helps produce some of the most rich fertilizer, which ultimately helps with gardening. Well, people are doing what they can to get on track towards some sense of normalcy. Our partners at Newsy asked about the path forward for telehealth.
I'm Joe DeVivo, CEO of InTouch Health. The pandemic we've been experiencing is a challenge. We all know that those who are most challenged are those who are on the front lines, those who are having to have an accelerated exposure to the virus. So what InTouch has are devices and networking and software that allows a doctor or a caregiver to remotely care for that patient. Our robots actually have peripheral vision. So we have this fisheye lens that when the doctor comes into the environment, they can see all the way 180 degrees to the left and to the right. Another camera takes action and allows them to zoom in extremely quickly. We can plug in EKG, ultrasound, or other devices into the robot so the doctor can see you and also see all those vitals that are happening at the same time. Because this is not just communication, this is getting the doctor data so they can make a life-altering decision. And so the thermal camera will allow the doctor to remotely see the heat map of the patient. I think my fears for the future is we go back to the past. There's a lot of lessons our society is learning during this time. On one side, this company's been working on this for decades. on the other side, just like that, the world opened its eyes, and now it's obvious that we need this. So the greatest thing is to have your passion, deliver your solutions, but be aware that you might not control when everyone else gets it. And so pace yourself. Don't just believe you can change the world. You might have to be there waiting for when the world is ready to.
A team of researchers says they created an antibody to neutralize the COVID-19 virus. It could potentially help advance the search for prevention and treatment. Scientists say the antibody destroys the spiky crown the virus is named after. Researchers say it's early in the process, but they're hopeful. More than 100 years after the Spanish flu infected people around the world, many are comparing it to today's pandemic. There were some parallels we can draw between now and 1918 when the disease struck. Businesses closed, people social distanced, and wore masks in public. But back then, it wasn't the elderly and immunocompromised who were vulnerable.
I'm not an epidemiologist, but it really struck people in the prime of their lives. People with the strongest immune systems were the ones taken out.
The CDC estimates 500 million people, or 1/3 of the world population at the time, was infected with the virus. 50 million of them died. For some COVID-19 patients, beating the disease may be just the first part of an even longer battle. Christian Benavides spoke to experts about some of the lingering effects COVID-19 has had on some patients, particularly affecting their heart.
Some patients who have recovered from COVID-19 are developing what may be long-lasting health issues.
If you've been through this, you're still not done. We need to work carefully together to ensure that you get stronger.
While health experts warn COVID-19 is still a new virus and little is known about those who have recovered, some seemingly healthy individuals who come down with it find themselves suffering from heart disease following their battle.
We're thinking that there may be this post-viral syndrome too. When the virus actually goes to the heart and causes direct damage, that could happen to anyone. And that's not specific to people with prior heart disease.
Even more troubling, in rare cases, some children who have been diagnosed with COVID-19 are developing Kawasaki disease, an autoimmune disorder.
It causes weakness of the heart muscle. It can cause aneurysms, weakening of the vessels that allow it to burst. So really, you're talking about a multi-system issue here with the virus as it relates to what the inflammatory response is, as well as what our own immune system is doing to combat it. Where your own immune systems attack the blood vessels, causing kids long-lasting fever, rash. They have swelling of the lymph nodes, and it really creates a very uncomfortable situation for kids.
Experts are warning those who have recovered, pay attention to your symptoms, and that even parents should be extra vigilant of their children, because recovering from the virus may just be the beginning.
How are the lungs working? How's the heart working? How's the liver working? How's the coagulation system working? How long does it take to get back to normal? And we don't know that answer yet.
It's unclear if the lingering health issues will end. Experts say the most important thing to do after recovering from the virus is to follow up with your doctor. Well, a retired orthopedic surgeon who had COVID-19 credits lung exercises with saving her life. She says doctors found pneumonia in her lungs when she got the virus. They put her on antibiotics, but she says her breathing wasn't getting any better. That's when she thought to try what's called pulmonary toilet. It's a technique common in treating respiratory illnesses. It's used to help clear your airways of mucus and infection.
I call it lung drumming, where you cup your hands and you drum the lung. In the front, on the side, and in the back.
She coached her husband to do it to her, and she says within days she could breathe normally again. Well, Muslims are having to adjust centuries of tradition as they observe the holy month of Ramadan. The positives they're finding as they connect with their faith in new ways.
Home experts at theindychannel.com.
Welcome back. Coronavirus sidelined religious observations, including Easter and Passover. Now, Muslims around the globe and here in the U.S. are observing the holy month of Ramadan. The faith normally urges its followers to pray in congregation and sometimes requires it, but present circumstances mean adjusting centuries of tradition.
Yeah, that's perfect.
It's a busy time for millions of American Muslims like Sakina Saida, her husband Nasser Kodolensky, and their 3 children.
So this is, what's your name? Aisha. This is Aisha, this is Sophia, and this is Hussein.
It's the holy month of Ramadan, the 9th month in the Islamic calendar, when Muslims fast from sunrise to sunset, ending in the evening with an iftar, a dinner, breaking bread with friends and family.
It's really about community. It's about coming together, to do like congregational worship and to break fast together.
And then we'd all come together for nighttime prayers at the masjid, and it would be so nice to like catch up.
But this year, stay-at-home orders mean a very different spiritual experience, one focused on worship and reflection in isolation.
We're very much isolated, whereas usually we're used to so much activity. I mean, the mosque typically for prayers would be completely full.
Normally at this time of year, mosques around the country and the world would look like this. But today, the parking lots are deserted, the minarets dark. Even the Grand Mosque in Mecca, historically humming with energy this time of year, nearly empty.
Maybe this is one of the goods that we come to realize just how beautiful it is to be able to worship in public, because there's a lot of places around the world where that's not allowed.
Imam Hisham Al-Qaisi normally leads nightly vigils and prayers here at the Islamic Foundation, but these days he's alone in the prayer hall.
This quiet and this emptiness that you see here, it's an eerie feeling.
Instead, he connects with worshipers virtually online. But he says there is a lesson in this pandemic in what he calls a return to the faith's origins.
Before we were able to congregate in public, before Islam became an international phenomenon, we had to do Islam in our homes, and that's exactly what we're returning to now.
Allahumma. Back at the Kodolensky household, young Aisha is commemorating completing her first fast with a ceremonial date. And Mom Sakina says she's discovered the upside in the seclusion.
There's a silver lining in this, and that silver lining is that we are focusing on our spiritual, individual worship at home and being there as a family.
A silver lining, she says, in challenging times. A new analysis of small business loans through the Paycheck Protection Program shows it's not reaching enough of the hardest hit areas. Businesses in states like New York, New Jersey, Michigan, and Pennsylvania are getting lower percentages of loans than some mountain and Midwest states. The analysis was done by the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. The review found that where loans went may be related more to the proportion of the state's businesses serviced by community banks. The Small Business Administration took a first-come, first-served basis on approving the loans. Well, a community helping to fill the needs it saw among its own members. How a small effort to help has snowballed into something bigger. Welcome back. We like to end the rundown with stories that remind us of the good going on. Today, neighbors are helping seniors in their community in Mesa, Arizona. It started with one woman bringing leftovers to seniors in the same mobile home park. Once Karen Mata visited her neighbors, she realized how limited their mobility is and how it could affect how they get their meals. So Mata reached out to the Salvation Army and worked with them to deliver meals to seniors. Now more people are getting involved.
Eye-opener for me that and my husband that there are people in real need. It makes me feel very warm inside that I'm able to help people out.
Volunteers now prepare about 85 lunches a day for seniors in Mesa. That's all the time we have today for Coronavirus, The Rundown. We'll see you next time. I'm Usher Qureshi. Thanks for joining us.